Hello and welcome to the BR Connection. I'm Pat Riley, and our host here is our Superintendent of the Bridgewater Raynham Regional School District, Derek Swenson, and our special guest today is Mr. Paul Jovalos, who's the Director of Student Services for Bridgewater Raynham. Thank you both for joining us.
Good job with that name, too. That's a tough one.
That was perfect.
You taught me how to do that.
And thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for coming, Paul. And I can't believe we're already the third month, November, of the 2019-2020 school year. Derek, and overall, how are things going so far?
Things are going incredibly well. We've had a great start to the school year. We have a lot of folks that Paul will speak to in a little bit that were new additions to our staff that are really taking on roles that have really over the years somewhat not been addressed or neglected in a way because of funding being what they are and having to prioritize certain positions over others. But one right now that stands out for me is we now have a coordinator of teaching and learning, and Christine Richards, and she presented last night at school committee and talked about all the things that she is doing throughout the district to work with our teachers, doing embedded PD within the classroom, model lessons. One of the things that I thought was outstanding was she actually shadowed a high school student for a day and followed that high school student's schedule. Gave her a break at lunch, she said, so not to cramp her style at lunch, but to eat with the coordinator of teaching and learning. But again, was getting a sense of what not only the teachers are seeing throughout the course of a day from an instruction and curriculum standpoint, but also our students. So that's definitely something that has been lacking in our district, and it's definitely something that I think with the feedback that she is receiving and the information she's receiving is going to really help drive our budgetary process when it comes to curriculum resources and staffing, and really is that missing element that's really going to help bring our district continuing forward. So that is one in particular, and I know Paul has one to his department as well.
I do, and before I describe that new position, I'm really proud that over the past couple of years, our administrative team is working on, collaborating, between departments. I've worked with Ms. Richards on a number of projects, focused on, are the remedial reading curriculums that we're using across the district, or or things of that nature, just to bridge and make sure that between all tiers of learning we're really strong and supported, because we wouldn't have a good special education program if we didn't have a solid foundation in our regular education program. So really working between departments and collaborating along with Mr. Powers and Mr. Swenson, of course, as well. And it's just been great, the connections that we're making, and the bigger picture work that we're doing. It's just been wonderful. And Christine has been, Ms. Richards has just been, a huge addition to the team.
Excellent, excellent. Paul, give us a little idea of the scope of your position.
So in my position as Director of Student Services, I oversee all the services for students with disabilities across the district. So that might be students on IEPs or individualized education programs, students who are on 504 accommodation plans, due to a disability, but also working in strong conjunction with just the overall tiered system of supports that we have across the district as well, ensuring that our regular education students have access to accommodations and differentiated instruction, and trying my best to be an instructional coach in that way as well across the district. I work with two wonderful special ed administrators, Ms. Dina Medeiros and Ms. Kate Parker. Dean is pre-K through 8 on the Raynham side of the district, and Kate is K through 8 on the Bridgewater side of the district, and then I oversee the high school directly myself. And then I also serve as principal of our therapeutic public day program here in the district as well, which is a middle school and a high school classroom. And as Mr. Swenson was saying earlier, we're very excited that we have a new administrative member of the team this year as well, Ms. Caitlin Morelli, who is our coordinator of family and student supports. And Ms. Morelli wears a lot of different hats. She actually helps to support our out-of-district students who attend public or private day schools in the area. She works as our truancy officer. And does through Brockton or Taunton Court files CRAs for students, and then is also taking on some of the social emotional learning coaching responsibility across the district as well. So she wears a lot of hats.
Yes.
The most important thing about her position is she's approaching this from a very supportive lens. Some of these things are very punitive CRAs or child requiring assistance petitions through court, truancy proceedings. They have the tendency to feel very punitive, but she's approaching it from a very positive standpoint with families and saying, what can I do to support you in getting your student to school, or getting your student some community resources and support to help them to succeed. So approaching what's perceived as sometimes punitive actions, but with a very supportive and accessible demeanor about her.
Having more of a proactive approach rather than having to have that reactive approach later on. And I think that's something, again, that is essential to have within a district, especially this size. And really, truly, we've talked about a little bit how our demographic has shifted in the last few years. And we do have some families that have come to us with some significant needs, not only with their students that may have a disability, but some significant needs outside of the home that may be preventing the student from successfully accessing the school day or accessing the curriculum once they're within the school building. So having that position too, to work as a liaison between the schools and home, and almost have a wraparound type service for that is the approach that we want, rather than that just punitive approach of being court involved. We want to work with our families to make sure that we can support them, to make sure the students are getting to school on time. If they need any type of service in terms of, we identify them as, not eating at school or bringing things in, and it's a situation where they might be free and reduced lunch, and working and identifying those things that may sometimes unfortunately fall through the cracks. So Caitlin has done a fabulous job working under Paul. And I would just say, if I could, I've worked with Paul for the last few years, and I could tell you the position that he's in right now, it is a very unique and very difficult position.
Oh, sure.
And Paul handles himself on a daily basis, truly as a professional. He's an advocate for children, and he is, supports his staff that falls underneath his umbrella within the organizational chart. So, he does an outstanding job. And I got to say, it's probably one of, if not the most difficult jobs within a district. Other than that, other than possibly superintendent, superintendent, but it's a very taxing job. But he does it with professionalism and grace each and every day. So we're very fortunate to have him and Mrs. Medeiros and Mrs. Parker and now Mrs. Morelli as part of the student services team.
And the team we have makes a difficult job manageable, and unique is a very appropriate word. We're just new adventures every day.
Yes, it's never the same.
It's amazing, and I think a lot of people don't realize some of the issues that some even very young children have to deal with. And if those, even if they're outside of the school day, but if they're not addressed, then you're not going to be able to accomplish anything within the confines of the school day.
It is very sad that younger and younger students are coming to us with very significant trauma and very significant things that you wouldn't expect an adult to have gone through in their life. We have kindergartners, first graders coming to us having experienced it. It's very sad to see, but something that we need to be very responsive toward, and really puts our social emotional learning, some of our pursuits around staffing, really at the forefront in focusing on not just those students who have that trauma background, but just creating a community of safe and supportive schools where students feel like they can access their education because they feel comfortable, because they feel like they have relationships in their school environment, and learn how to maintain and navigate those relationships.
Now, I know some positions were added to the budget this year to address some of the social and emotional issues. How is that helping at this point?
Absolutely.
Tell us about those positions.
We were hugely fortunate through the support of school committee and Superintendent Swenson and Assistant Superintendent Powers to be able to add 2 adjustment counselors to our district. One at the Williams Intermediate School and one at a split position between the Merrill Elementary School and La Liberty Elementary School for this past year. And they're certainly being well utilized in their positions, and And in addition to that, we replaced 2 positions at the high school through, that came through retirement. And then the year prior, we had added a school psychologist at the Raynham Middle School as well. So these clinical supports are certainly, need to be bolstered in our buildings, and are definitely hitting the ground running on that first day.
Do you find the numbers increasing of students that need extra assistance, Paul?
Yes.
I mean, the world is so insane. It'd be amazing if that wasn't the case.
Yeah, we pulled data around student crises in the building, nursing visits, that are due to those emotional reasons. We collect data at the late middle school and early high school level through our expert screening survey. So it tracks students who have had thoughts of self-harm, exposure to illicit substances. And we get a lot of data and are able to perform a lot of follow-up around that. We're also undergoing a very significant, I don't want to call it an initiative because it's not something that's going to be temporary or a flash in the pan, but undergoing a real significant push around social emotional learning starting this year in educating our staff across the district and gathering some baseline information from our staff around where their comfort levels in terms of being that that relationship builder or that go-to person for students who are in emotional crisis. And we're starting off with a topic that's very accessible, focusing on relationship building. So not everyone has to be a clinician, not everyone has the training to counsel a student, but everyone has the capacity to be a good person and to be a safe harbor for a student. So that's where we're choosing to start and build capacity.
And I was actually walking the buildings earlier this week, and we've implemented things such as morning meeting. So basically that is the students enter the classroom, they go to a designated area within the class room and they sit, and it may be very simple as, "Hi Paul, my name's Derek," well initially until they get to know one another. And last night I had a baseball game, what did you do? And Paul shares with me. It's all about identifying students that maybe don't have a social connection. And so the research shows that not only with their peers but an adult in the building, the research is very clear that if a child feels connected to one adult within the building, it significantly lowers their chances of, unfortunately, what Paul just detailed, of having some type of social emotional episode or self-harm. So those are the types of things that we're trying to implement through and embed within our regular curriculum. Those are just things that we're trying to do. And it's not only, people may view that as more of an elementary exercise, they're actually doing it in the advisory block at the high school as well.
Really?
And they did a exercise last year in one of the faculty meetings at the high school where they took all of the teachers and all of their rosters. And they basically said, okay, go up and write one thing about each of these students that you know. And it was very telling. You know the students that maybe are involved in rainwater or are they involved in athletics, and but there were a handful of students that no one had a real idea about anything pertaining to that student. And what we've said is those are the students that we really truly need to reach out to and help build relationships with over the course of the next school year. So all of those things that Paul has brought to us and Ryan Powers has brought to us, and we have what's called in our Excel social emotional team, not to be mistaken with Excel, the night program, but it's administrators, teachers, central admin that all went to this training and are bringing these strategies back to our district as yet another element. We talked about Christine bringing us forward from a true curriculum and instruction, but also now the social emotional piece, and it all ties together. Because if a student is not regulated and able to access that curriculum, it doesn't matter how strong of a teacher you are, what type of curriculum resources you have, if the student is not ready to access that curriculum and instruction, their true learning is not going to take place. So again, they have to be working in unison, and that's what Paul and the Excel team has brought to us this year. We're going to continue to build that and be part, like he said, it's not an initiative and that it's a flash in the pan. This is something that we're going to continue to build throughout our district so that proactively we can help try to eliminate some of or minimize at the very least a lot of these social emotional episodes that are taking place within our school. And that's not a BR issue.
No, gosh, no.
That's not a Commonwealth issue. That's a nationwide, worldwide issue. And there's a lot of contributing factors that we could talk hours about as to why students are coming into us with high anxiety and depression and whatnot. It's societal. There's a lot of different elements, family structure, technology. They're saying that this generation is the most connected yet disconnected generation in the history of our country in terms of connected through technology, but the social interaction, interpersonal skill piece is definitely lacking, and that can lead to those episodes of social emotional issues as they get older and mature and with the onset of adolescence and whatnot. And as Paul says, even unfortunately at the early elementary school level, which we're seeing. So he does have some ideas about how to address that, and we're going to look to be doing that in this budget season. He's already advocated for some programming that would help our students at the K-1 level. So as low as that level, we're seeing students come to us. And we do have a integrated special education preschool program that helps us to identify those students early on, but we do have a number of move-ins that come in that we really don't have a background in, or they may have never gone to a preschool program, and now this is their first real true school experience, and there may be some things that we need to see developmental or due to that lack of experience, or if there's truly a significant need that needs to be addressed through programming like Paul's advocating for. So we're very excited for the things that he brings to us, and again, he does have a very proactive lens in regard to that.
Yeah. And we are very fortunate in Bridgewater Raynham to have some of the most well-developed programming as far as special ed programming across the district.
Yes. And that's been, an emphasis for the school committee, for the school district for the last several years, try to develop programs within-house rather than having to send students out of district. Maybe you can tell us about a few of those.
Sure. So we have several different program strands that track through our district, and our program strands typically run through run through all grade levels and are housed on either one side of the district or the other. And we create these district-wide programs because it would be it'd be too costly to replicate every program in every one of our school buildings. So on the Raynham side of the district, starting at the La Liberty Elementary School, we have our program for students who have a high level of social and emotional need, and that tracks up through Raynham Middle School and Bridgewater Raynham Regional High School. And what we'll be advocating for in the coming school year is to extend that program into the Merrill School at the kindergarten and grade 1 level, because as I said, unfortunately we are seeing students that are at that young of an age not able to access their the mainstream curriculum because of their the level of their trauma or behavioral need that they exhibit. Also on the Raynham side, we have a language-based program strand that starts at Raynham Middle and tracks up through the high school, and also exists at the Williams Intermediate School and the Mitchell Elementary School as well. So that's for students who have learning needs primarily focused around written language, reading, and just the English language arts domain. Also on the Bridgewater side of the district at Mitchell Elementary, Williams Intermediate, Bridgewater Middle, and the high school is our program for students who have intellectual disabilities or autism spectrum disorders, and that has been a strand of programming that's certainly increased due to move-ins and due to the good reputation of the Bridgewater Raynham Regional School District. We've got a lot of families who come to Bridgewater or Raynham specifically because of the the wonderful schools and the special education programming. And then we also are very fortunate and one of the few in the region to have our own public day school, which is a therapeutic program at the middle and high school level where students who aren't able to be successful in a mainstream school setting, to any extent, come. And that's similar to programs provided by our educational collaboratives in the area, like Reed's Collaborative or North River Collaborative, but something that, was built, prior to my arriving and then extended to the middle school level as well. So very robust programming in Bridgewater and Raynham schools. And Mr. Swenson also mentioned our blossoming preschool program as well. It's a program that continues to grow through the severity of our referrals we get from early intervention, so birth through 3 services in the region, and then just student need and significantly around communication, speech need, and severity of student needs, like students with intellectual disabilities or autism who are coming into our preschool programs as well. And Ms. Medeiros, has a very large, portion of her role, is supporting the preschool, which continues to grow year after year as well.
Definitely, definitely. Is there an advantage to trying to address those issues as soon as possible, age-wise?
Absolutely. And that's why, for the coming budget season, proposing that K-1 component of the, of a sub-separate program at the Merrill School, or an additional proposal for an additional speech pathologist at the preschool level, is primarily focused on that, helping students to, either get on track behaviorally, make progress in terms of their ability to communicate, which could, lead to reading difficulty in the future for these students as well. Just, helps these students to, to bridge that gap a bit earlier, so that, they'll be more successful.
Sure, and a sense of frustration, I'm sure, on the part of that child too. If they can't communicate, or they have anger issues or whatever that aren't addressed, those will just increase if they're not addressed.
And Paul, as he stated, our former Director of Student Services, Carla Thomas, she created and came forth with a lot of these ideas. Paul has brought some ideas to us with the idea, first and foremost, we always want to educate the students that live within our towns of Bridgewater and Raynham. We want to make sure that they are being educated within their communities, with their peer group, that they, will hopefully walk across the stage at BR someday and receive a diploma. The last thing we want is to not be able to address a need of a student and it result in an out-of-district placement, which means that they would go to a specialized school or a collaborative that they would have that are specific to that student's significant needs. But again, we continuously do an assessment of those programs, see how that we can improve those programs, see if there are other programs that we can create based upon the population coming in, and Paul and his team do a wonderful job with that. And there is, we say from a budgetary standpoint, there is a fiscal savings to that, because significant, not only with the tuitions to the schools, but the transportation.
Right.
Some of these schools, Paul, if you can tell me, can be up to 45 minutes to up to an hour, I believe.
Up to an hour is the regulation, but yeah, it's for example, we had a move-in student who was going to school in the Mission Hill section of Boston, and so a second grade student having to drive into Boston every day to attend this private day school. We were able to work together with the parent and have that student transition to a school that's much closer. But the impact that that must have had on that child with a significant disability every day must have been huge. So anything we can do to form a connection with families and with students to keep them in their home communities is really the primary reason that we seek to build all these programs, because we have that investment in this inclusive community, and really feel like it's the best thing we can do. And even our families who have students who attend out-of-district programming, we still encourage them to keep a connection with the district. We tried, along with our Special Education Parents Advisory Council, in recent years to form a specific cohort of families of students who were in out-of-district placements, just so we could try to keep that connection with them. Our Special Ed Parents Advisory Group, led by Kate Dyer, our CPAC president, is just a wonderful group. We have some really great presentations outlined for this year as well. and just recently came off our another successful year of our resource fair at the La Liberty Elementary School. There were over 30 vendors and
Wow.
service providers in the areas, resource people in the areas that came out to set up a fair model, for families that could come and circulate and, and gather some of these materials as they, navigate, supporting their children with disabilities at home.
Excellent, excellent.
And some of the programs that Paul and his department oversee are actually sometimes a revenue stream for us, in that we can tuition students in from other districts who do not have a similar program. And Paul's done a really good job of that too, when selling our programs a little bit if we have space available.
Right,
of
right,
course, we don't
right.
want to so that it becomes a detriment to the students that are
Absolutely.
within our care. So if there is availability in some of these programs, and he speaks to other directors of special education or student services, and they have students with significant need, that would go out to an out-of-district placement that is much more costly than they would to tuition them into our program. So that's a way too that sometimes we're able to sell
Offset
some of the seats,
costs.
some of the costs, and have that kind of go into a revolving account that can help us later on offset some costs within Paul's department, which is a very costly department because of the things that we just talked about with out-of-district placement, staffing, transportation needs, not only out-of-district transportation, but in-district transportation. There are some students that just can't access an 80-passenger bus.
Right.
So within their IEP, with the transportation grid, that they may have some type of transportation need. Paul and his department would set that up through Lucini bus lines on our van system. So all of those things that fall under Paul, again, is why it's such a unique position. He wears many hats, and he wears them well. So
Thank you.
Excellent.
Especially when it's sunny out.
Puts everybody in a better mood for sure. Well, we want to thank you both very much for coming on this episode of the BR Connection. And Paul, thank you for sharing with us some of the work that you do and your department does.
My pleasure.
And
Thank you
Derek,
for
as
having me.
always, and we will be back next
happy
month.
Thanksgiving too.
Yes,
oh, yes,
happy
to all of
Thanksgiving.
our viewers
Happy
out there.
Thanksgiving, everybody.
And we will be back next month with another episode of our BR Connection. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.